It's a very good question, isn't it? Why you'd forage. I really clearly remember foraging seeming like kind of a waste of time. Well, yeah, just a waste of time, just pointless. It's just like, it's a lot of energy used for not much return, I suppose, in some ways. Foraging to us today, to human today, just seems like something that humans used to do, and we're like beyond that now. We've gone past that. We're maybe more sophisticated than that, or maybe we don't need to do that anymore. And I understand those arguments. I've not been foraging that long. I've been foraging for about a year and a half, and it's become quite a big part of my life, and I really enjoy what it is, what it means. I brought this colander because it's quite good to forage things in something with holes in it. Allows your things to breathe a bit more. Yeah, I'm going to teach you why I think foraging is worth my time. Hi there. There's a lot of fear around foraging. I definitely had a lot of fear around foraging. I still do. It's for pretty good reason. We're no longer accustomed to what is edible and what is poisonous. That I'm sure would have once been quite common knowledge, but is no longer particularly common knowledge. And we kind of have a bit of a blanket statement for everything, like don't bother with wild food. There's poisonous stuff out there. Let's just leave that. Which I suppose I see the reason for that, but I think when you have that much fear around it, you miss out on the good stuff. It's yes, there are poisonous things, but there are also things that heal you. There are amazing things, and I don't think just because things are scary or that there's a bit of fear involved means you shouldn't do it. Everything has risk involved. Everything has a kind of a fear side to it. It's just with foraging, not many people have breached over that fear, But there's many dangerous things that we do on a daily basis that I'd argue much more dangerous than foraging. And like anything, if you teach yourself and you're patient with it, then you're going to be sweet. I think I trust some kind of inner voice, not with what I should and shouldn't eat. Of course, I do my research, but I trust the inner voice that foraging is what humans do. It's just, for me, it's just such normal human behavior. Humans eat food from the woods. They eat food from the wild. And we call it foraging, we call it wild food, but it's just food at the end of the day. We've collected our food in the wild for many more thousands of years than we've farmed it. I'm not saying one is better than the other, or we should do one, or we shouldn't do the other. But this is definitely a big part of the human experience. Getting food that is part of an interconnected web of life isn't just reserved to a singular field. And I think that's really what it boils down to for me is relationality. So when I say relationality, I mean that foraging for me is far less about self-sufficiency and more about deepening my relationship with the natural world, with the reality of nature, with our home, effectively. In many ways, we're very disconnected from food, and we're very disconnected from nature in a lot of ways. And one of our ways of absorbing nature and immersing ourselves in nature is through our eyes, and that's the kind of the dominant way in our culture. Everything's quite like the visual experience, the spectacle, which is fantastic because things are beautiful and I love looking at nice things. But it's like one of many ways to interact with the natural world, and consuming the natural world and foraging is like it's a huge way to communicate with nature. maybe the biggest in some ways. You're directly putting it into your body. These are quite a good first thing to learn to forage. They're called pennywort, wall pennywort, or navelwort, and they're pretty yummy and they're pretty obvious. They kind of have like a belly button. I'm going to move the camera here. So they look like this. And they grow on stone walls mainly. That's why they call them wall pennywort. And they're a pretty good one to start learning to forage. When I said foraging isn't about self-sufficiency, I'm sure it is for many people. Don't get me wrong, but for me, it's not. You know, I live in the United Kingdom in 2024. I buy my food from the supermarket. I currently have 3 eggs in my pocket. I'm going to eat these for my breakfast. You know, I'm of course completely dependent on the farming system and agriculture, and I'm very glad that it's there, because foraging 100% of my time realistically wouldn't be what I want to do, although I get so much pleasure out of it. But it supplements my diet. I love that. I want to eat food from the place that I live. I want to eat food from the same soil that I live on. And of course you get that in farming as well. But this is like the next step of that. You know, it's right here. This is from the environments I walk in with the dog. It's like, it's the whole thing for me. And if I can supplement my diet with things like this, that really feels like it deepens my relationship with my home and brings me a sense of belonging in the natural world and in the landscape I live in a way that I don't really get with anything else. It's a familiarity. Wherever you go, the more you build up your knowledge of what plants are what and what species are what, wherever you go, I feel like I kind of have friends everywhere, you know. There's this familiarity as I move through the world that it allows me to feel like I'm at home in a lot of places. And I really enjoy that feeling. Having that familiarity and to be able to kind of learn that language of my environment just feels like something that is just really human, and it feels like something I really want to be able to do. But in many ways, particularly when it comes to foraging, like learning the language of foraging kind of is maybe almost a bit like learning a dead language or a dying language. You know, a lot of old languages that maybe are on the way out, that less and less people speak. You know, maybe they seem useless to learn in some senses, but when you learn these languages, maybe indigenous languages, older languages, you get an insight into nature and into people in a way that often modern languages don't always do, maybe. And it allows you to see the land in maybe a different way. And that's, I think, what foraging does as well. Like, I'm never going to be fluent in foraging in the sense that like all of my food is going to be from foraged things, but building up that understanding of my ecosystem feels like a really important human thing to do in 2024 for me. Just connects back to a much more ancient way of being, I suppose. And I really enjoy that. You know, for example, this is wild garlic. This is this year's first signs of wild garlic, and I so clearly remember being out at the beginning of last spring, and how excited that makes me feel. You know, it's so lovely to eat this stuff, and having an understanding of that like cyclical nature of what things come out at what time of the year. That really connects me. That really makes me feel like I'm part of this cycle, and it throws you back to maybe the headspace you were in at that time that year, and being like, you know how like music kind of reminds you of a time? Well, plants, and when you forage, they will probably end up reminding you of a time, like that feeling you felt last spring or last winter or whatever it is. And I love that. They kind of create stories in your brain in their own right, and they really seep into you, you know? So in a few weeks' time, these will all be like probably ready to eat. It's very exciting. That stick is so big. It's huge, man. Wow. I have a collie. He's such a collie most of the time. He's mad. He's a complete mad person. And then on the other side of all this, there's obviously stuff you don't want to be eating, like this. This is called Lords and Ladies. And what I just showed you before was wild garlic, but there's a point in the spring where the Lords and Ladies leaves maybe could be confused with the wild garlic leaves. Like, I mean, they're pretty easy to tell the difference, but you don't want to be eating them, and they often grow very near each other. So there is a lot to learn. It's not just about going and eating whatever, you know, but people are aware of that. You know, that's where a lot of that fear comes from. But at the moment, you know, people who are teaching themselves foraging now, you're basically trying to teach yourself thousands of years worth of human knowledge in just like in a lifetime or in a few weeks or a few months or a few years. You know, all this information that would be second nature to us. We wouldn't even have to think about what things were poisonous and what wasn't. We'd almost know it intuitively from watching our parents and our grandparents and our communities foraging these things. Now we've got to learn. And it's quite a steep learning curve, you know, because stuff's poisonous. I don't think these are technically poisonous. It's not like a poison or a toxin that would kill you in this, I don't think. I think when you break them apart, what I've been told is if you break them apart, they turn into like a crystalline structure, which gets incredibly sharp. And if you were to consume that, it would like cut your throat up. I mean, that's poisonous in my book, but it's not a poison. There's not many plants on this walk that you'd have to really, really avoid that look like other things you want to eat. There's not loads. And you just learn them, just get really good at learning. I think that's one of the places I started, was just learning the things that were poisonous rather than things I could eat. And the things that are poisonous, they become kind of quite famous in their own right. You know, things like hemlock, all the stories around hemlock and what famous people have been killed with hemlock. And if you start doing enough research about about what plants are poisonous, you'll start to realise that most of the ones that you're going to find that are poisonous are kind of famous. So yeah. Anyway, Lords and Ladies, avoid that one. I think a lot of people, including myself, are like craving stronger connections to place. And of course food is such a big part of that, you know. And being able to, of course, buy local food and maybe grow your own local food is a huge part of that. There's something, to me, I think, about similarity between community and ecosystem. You know, there is no difference between community and ecosystem. I think those words can be interchanged. And shush, come on, bring the stick here. Bring it here. Bring it here. Get another stick. That one's way too big. Shush. I'm eating my eggs now. I'm gonna eat my egg. Bring me a stick. It's really about connection to place, I think, and that sense of belonging. I think that's what I crave most deeply. And I think nature connection really brings a sense of that belonging. As you start to have a familiarity with the landscape around you, not just through your eyes, but through the different beings that live here, and know how they interrelate with one another, and which ones you can eat and which ones are poisonous, and which animals eat other ones. And when I eat food from the environments that I spend time in and I walk in, it's like it's a small hint and a small reminder that I'm also part of that ecosystem, part of that community. And I think those words ecosystem and community can be really interchanged. And I think there isn't a difference between the ecosystem of nature and the community of humans. The way they merge together is well, I mean, they really merge together at the point of food. And the way that we consume food, I think, could be a lot more in line with nature. And I think the more I understand wild food and the things that are in my immediate environment to forage, I just deepen that sense, that relationship with food and place. I think also another reason why I started foraging was because obviously there's loads of like homesteading around. There's loads of people who want to grow their own food, which is fantastic. But in the UK, that can be maybe quite hard to come by. You know, not everyone has gardens. Land is incredibly expensive. What I love about foraging is that it kind of exists like in the public domain, in the natural sense, of course. I mean, I'm sure someone even owns this woodland I'm in, but there's a level of like, I don't have to tend to the plants here. I don't have to farm them. They're beings that do their own thing, and I can come by. I can eat some of them, like these pennyworts. You know, they're pretty good actually. See, to supplement my eggs, wall pennyworts and eggs. And I can come here and I can communicate with the land in that way. Well, they're quite strong, those ones. Pennyworts are good. They pretty much grow most of the year, but they often can get quite strong, quite like bitter flavoured. They hold loads of water, and they swell up after it rains, and they're like really refreshing. In the summer, if you're like running and you get hot and you don't want to carry water with you. You know, I know the goal with this isn't to sustain everyone on Earth through foraging. Like I'm pretty sure that can't happen. I don't think that's how we feed whatever it is, 9 billion people, 8 billion people. But I think it's still important to have an understanding of the plants and the beings around us. It would benefit a lot of people to know these things, you know. What plants they can eat, what trees are what. For some reason that just feels like something that's very important. You know, there definitely are people who forage for very substantial amounts of their food, if not all of their food. And maybe I'd love to have a period of my life where I do that. But I think there's part of me that feels quite gutted that no one taught me. That wasn't information that was passed down to me, foraging knowledge, like learning through the internet and through books, which I'm really grateful for, that people are out there putting that information out. And it seems like such basic human knowledge to know what beings are around you, what plants exist in the environment you live in. That's information that for most of human history everyone would have known, and now we don't really know that. I really want to be able to share that with the next generation. I want to be able to share that with kids if I have kids, and so that's just common knowledge again. And I suppose that's why I'm sharing videos like this. I just want to normalize just being able to walk into the woods and being like, oh yeah, I know what that thing is. I know what that thing does. I know what that tree is. I know if I can kind of eat that stuff. You know, it's not about being a master forager. Bring the stick here. Come on, bring it here. It's not about being like a master forager. It's just about having an appreciation. I've got a perfect yolk ball. A yolk ball. He wants my yolk ball. He's mistaking it for a tiny tennis ball. It's all gone. Maybe none of that matters anyway. Maybe the time of foraging and interacting with nature in that way is kind of maybe it's just behind us. What do I know? I'm not sure. Maybe it isn't super valuable information anymore. For me, it seems super valuable. But maybe I've built up like a romantic idea that we're all going to like go back and live in the woods. I think whatever future we end up in, it's probably going to be some combination of of modern progress and ancient wisdom. And I think a great foundation of that is just having an understanding of the things that we're losing maybe, or just having an understanding of the other beings that inhabit this world. Maybe we should it's just that. Anyway, hope you enjoy this video. I'm enjoying my pennyworts. Thank you for watching it. Well, I hope with these videos that you go, oh, I could go for a walk in the park. I could go and identify something. I could go and start my communications with the natural world, or continue my communications with the natural world. Maybe you're picking up where you left off when you were a kid. You know, I've got back into this stuff in my 20s. I loved it when I was like 10, 11, 12, and then as a teenager just was like, that doesn't seem worth my time anymore. And now it's like, this is what it's all about. This is everything now. You know, this is what life is. Like, humans eat things from the ground and from the land, and we always have done. Bye.